So our life as a TypeScript.NET developer is going to require that we be very cautious. We be very aware of what is being returned from functions as far as types go, and also what is being passed into functions. And if you're coming from good old regular JavaScript, you may be just very comfy declaring state. You may be just very comfy going and taking data and putting it into our state, just like we are doing right here. But in regular JavaScript React world, this is going to be okay. But in TypeScript React world, this is not going to be okay. And if you directly pass in API data into your state, oftentimes you're going to get an error because there's what's called type mismatching. So if you look right here, you will notice that this only allows us to pass in a company search array. But we've also given our API call the ability to return strings if we get a faulty or bad API call. And even though only 1% of the time you may get a string, you are still going to have to narrow down this type to be 100% sure that it is only passing an array. How do we actually do that? We do this with what's called type narrowing. Type narrowing is essentially a fancy term for you're going to place an if-else statement at the very beginning so that you can check and be 100% sure that what is being passed into the state is going to be either a 100% string or 100% company search array. And if we get a string, we will probably put some type of warning. So we'll say set warning because this is not what we want. But if we get an array of results, which is what we do want, or maybe you get some type of 100 OK error or 200 OK error, that's when you would actually store the search result. You have to be 100% sure what you're passing in as params, and you must be cognizant, you must be aware of what is being returned. And that doesn't go for just APIs, that goes for all code in general. But let's go ahead, let's actually get this API call done. Let's do a couple type assertions and type narrowing, and let's hop into VS Code. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to actually have a piece of state to store the search result. Right now we have the ability to store the user search, but we don't have the ability to store the state for the actual what we get back from the API. So that's what we're going to work on now. So we'll say search result, going to say set search result. We are going to use the state hook, and this is going to store a type of company search and an array. Or you always want to initialize use state with something. Never leave this part empty right here because you will get a bunch of undefined errors. And I'm going to go ahead in here and bring in the company search. Okay, so have that. Now what we need to do is we need to go inside of our onClick and actually go get the company. So I'm going to say company.result is equal to await search companies, and bring that in from our API folder, then go into here, and we're going to pass in our search, which is what we got from our actual search bar. So go ahead down here. Also, we need to make this async, and if we want to use await within our function, we need to make this function async. And if you go here and try to just set the search result, so if you go set search result and you pass in the result, or you pass in data just like this, you're always going to get errors because it is not correctly typed for a string. So what you want to do is, I'm just going to go ahead, get rid of this. We don't actually need this. And I'm going to do type narrowing. So I'm going to go into here. I'm going to say type of result. And if it's a type string, we will store some type of error. And I'm going to create a server error piece of state. So I'll say server error, just like this, and I'll say set server error is equal to use state, and we'll pass it a string because that is what we are getting back from the API. And I'm going to initialize it with a string just like this. And if you want to figure out how I actually knew that the API was going to return a string, you can see when you actually either hover over these search companies. So if I go into here and I do search companies, you will see that it will either return a string or an Axios response, which is basically a promise. So that's how I knew that both a string or a promise or the server data was going to be returned. So I'm going to go into here and I'm going to set the server error, and we will set it to the result that we get back from the search company's API. And then we'll do an else if here. We'll check if it is an array. So we'll say if array is array, then we'll pass in the result dot data. And then if we try to pass in set search result, it will be 100% type checked, and we won't have to actually worry about any more type checking because it will automatically log it. So I'm going to go into here, going to go ahead and console log this to make sure that we are actually getting the correct data back, and we will finally have our API call within our actual component. So I'll go into here, say set search result, go ahead, go down here, cd into front end, say npm start, go ahead, go down here, console.log, say Apple, and we get 3 Apple pieces of data back, and our API is communicating. So we are finally getting data into our actual components. We can now go in and create some conditional rendering after this, and then we're going to go ahead and start building the list after this. Anyways, hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for watching.